Hi, my name is Shari Moore. This is my PowerPoint to fulfill the educational requirements for EDU 3370. This PowerPoint is about Common Core Anchor Standards 1 through 10. Not only the key ideas, but also the instructional ideas. So the first one is Reading Standard 1. You read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. You cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the text. For instructional ideas for this, first read, have a purpose, read to get the situation of the text. Have students fill in a situation chart. Who's speaking or narrating, to whom, about what, when and where, why and what purpose, what the tone is, and then make inferences about the text. Identify explicit or implicit passages. The second read, you should annotate and use text codes. Things like QCC for questions, comments, and connections in the margins. Triangle character names. Box each word you don't understand. Excuse me. Circle or label literary elements and devices. You put wavy lines under patterns or repetitions. Place lightning bolts and shifts or turns in the text, resulting from an epiphany, let's say. And you highlight key phrases or sentences that give insight into any part of the text and bracket important ideas. So that's the standard number 1. Standard number 2, Reading Anchor Standard number 2. We can see, is to determine central ideas or themes of a text and analyze their development. Summarize the key supporting details and ideas. Instructional ideas here. Theme and central idea are two separate terms, but both address the same core concept, which is message. Have the students identify what the text is about and which details support the central ideas and themes. Recount stories, including fables, folktales, and myths from diverse cultures. Determine the central message, lesson, or moral, and explain how it's conveyed through the key details in the text. Get the gist is what I call this. By having students use graphic organizers, which are always fun for them too. So here's the first graphic organizer that I downloaded. I didn't create it myself. It's a little cartoonish, Pink Panther-ish sort of graphic equalizer, but it does have key ideas and information, key ideas in the text, quotes from the text. And here's another graphic equalizer template, which is even more cartoonish, a little more fun for the elementary students. And it has things like character settings, story elements, such as the problem and solution, and of course the theme. So for Reading Anchor 3, analyze why and how individuals, events, and ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. Instructional ideas here, students must connect people, ideas, and events in this standard and focus on these 3 questions. How does an individual idea or event develop over the course of the text? How do individuals, events, or ideas interact over the course of the text? And why does an individual, event, or idea develop and interact over the course of the text? So here's Reading Standard 4. Interpret words and phrases as they're used in a text, including determining technical, connotative, figurative meanings, and analyze how specific word choices shape meaning or tone. Instructional ideas here. I like to create a basic flow chart for the students so they can identify the figurative language. And so here's the little flow chart that I created. And of course on the PowerPoint it will be interactive, so that's a lot of fun. So here's the PowerPoint. It's a comparison between 2 things, yes. Then does it use like or as? Yes. Then it's a simile? No, it's a metaphor. If it doesn't compare things, are they exaggerating too much? Yes, means it's hyperbole. No, means it's understatement. And things like Does the object or idea do human things? And if so, that's personification. So it's just a nice little reminder about how to identify figurative language with this little flow chart. So here's reading anchor number 5. Analyze the structure of text, including how specific sentences, paragraphs, and larger parts of the text relate to each other and the whole. And so my instructional ideas, use a text structure chart so they can easily identify different types of text that the author may use. And so here's another little chart that I've prepared for you on the next slide. And it's this 5 types of text structure. So this includes things like the descriptive kind, problem and solution, compare and contrast, cause and effect, and sequence. And of course there are signal words and tips, and that will help you identify which form of text structure is being used. So it does make it a whole lot easier for the beginners in the class. Here's reading anchor 6. This is under craft and structure. Access how point of view or purpose shapes the content and style of a text. Instructional ideas should include answers to the following. Who wrote it? How do you know? What's the purpose of this document? How do you know? How do point of view and purpose shape the style of each of these documents? And proper scaffolding should inspire the reader to identify, analyze, discuss, and argue about the complex issues, point of view, and purpose suggest. So that was standard 6 under craft and structure. Reading anchor standard 7, which is under integration of knowledge and ideas. Integrate and evaluate content presented in diverse media and formats, including visually and quantitatively, as well as in words. I also like to call this moving beyond the text. And here are some instructional ideas. Is it important to be able to determine the following? How do I detect bias in a text? How do I determine who published a document? Which tiers of information is valid for information gathering? Which tiers are valid for supporting a formal argument? And of course, here's the PowerPoint slide for that. And then reading anchor standard 8, integration of knowledge and ideas, of course. Delineate and evaluate the argument and specific claims in a text, including the validity of the reasoning, as well as the relevance and the sufficiency of the evidence, aka picking apart an argument. So the instructional ideas, it helps if you answer these questions. What claim is the author making? What evidence does the author use to support his or her claim? What warrant does the author give for using this evidence? How does the author handle opposing views? Is the author's claim clear? Does the author's tone lend itself to credibility? How about fanaticism? How about boredom? Is the evidence that's used strong enough? Does the evidence really prove the author's claim, or is he or she stretching it? And does the author acknowledge naysayers? Is he or she respectful towards them? And does he or she accurately represent their side? So that was number 8. Here's reading anchor standard number 9. Under integration of knowledge and ideas. This is analyze how 2 or more texts address similar themes or topics in order to build knowledge or to compare the approaches the author takes. Instructional ideas here include choose topically related articles and texts from a variety of genres. Choose the purpose of your text comparison. Is it to build knowledge? Or is it to compare authors' approaches to a topic? Here's an example of standard 9. And this is really fun for me because it's grade appropriate for the grade that I've been teaching. So for high school students studying about dystopian societies, one could have the students read Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 and also George Orwell's 1984. Then have students compare each author's approach, satirizing the direction that the author saw their worlds moving. In addition, the students could be given a factual article like one from a contemporary online magazine called The Week, which talks about America's most surprising banned books. And I have a link for you so that you can see which, and it really is surprising. James and the Giant Peach. Who knew? James and the Giant Peach was controversial. This selection would serve to reinforce the theme of a book burning, banning in specific, and censorship in general. So, and then finally, we're at Reading Anchor Standard 10. Hooray! This is range and level of text complexity. So, read and comprehend complex literary informational text independently and proficiently. And the instructional ideas here are to remember that the text assigned to students should always be grade appropriate. The following resources are essential to guide teachers to assign the best grade appropriate text for their students, regardless of reading level. And I found these fantastic 2 links, and you'll just have to click on them yourself to see how marvelous they really are. But they have hundreds of grade appropriate text for any grade you could possibly teach. So it's an amazing little resource here at the bottom of this. I'm going to use this myself all the time now. So those were my 10 standards. I do want to talk about standard 3 as it relates to one of my lesson plans, which is The Great Gatsby. And of course, to go back to standard 3, standard 3 says, analyze why and how individuals, events, and ideas developed and interact over the course of a text. And of course, this focuses on people, idea, and events. And so with Gatsby, we definitely can use this standard to sort of analyze what happened to Jay Gatsby. We see that Gatsby has attained a certain level of success, but his success is a fleeting one, and he only strove for success because he wanted to try to win back Daisy. And the circumstances that occur around Jay Gatsby and Daisy and Tom Buchanan and our narrator Nick, it's all really it all fits to this standard really well, because the whole book is basically to show you how character is a determining factor sometimes. Blood will tell, so to speak. And so we see that many of the characters in Gatsby don't really develop at all. I mean, Myrtle only develops a broken nose. Gatsby, he doesn't ever grow out of the desire to attain Daisy like she's some sort of badge of honor. And so really, Gatsby achieves a level of financial success, but he doesn't really grow a lot. And we see what happens to him. He ends up just like the guy in Sunset Boulevard, floating in the pool. So this has sort of been my mini lesson about Reading Anchor Standard 3 as it applies to The Great Gatsby. And I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. I'm so sorry about my circumstances here, and I'm still recovering from bronchitis, so I hope you'll forgive my intermittent coughing. But I really enjoyed this class so much, and I want to thank you for giving us such challenging tasks, and hopefully this will help me be a better teacher. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.